Good morning, Europe. It's Thursday, the 28th of April. Thank you for joining us. Let's start by looking at our top stories.
Russia warns it will cut gas to more European countries if they don't make their payments in rubles. Brussels says it's prepared to resist the Kremlin's threats. President Putin says any nation attempting to intervene in Ukraine will face a lightning-fast response, raising fears of an escalation in the war. And the World Health Organization says a perfect storm of conditions could see a catastrophic rise in measles and polio.
The European Commission has described a Gazprom decision to disrupt gas deliveries to 2 EU countries as Russian blackmail. Speaking Wednesday in Brussels, the Commission President said Europe was ready to help Poland and Bulgaria by delivering them gas from neighbouring countries to make sure consumers don't feel the pain.
But it comes as no surprise that the Kremlin uses fossil fuels to try to blackmail us. This is something the European Commission has been preparing for in close coordination and solidarity with member states and international partners.
Ursula von der Leyen added that paying for gas in rubles would be a breach of EU sanctions against Russia. The contracts were made in euros and should be paid in euros too. Wednesday, Bloomberg reported 12 European companies were already paying Gazprom in rubles.
If this is not foreseen in the contract, to pay in rubles is a breach of our sanctions. We have round about 97% of all contracts that explicitly stipulate payments in euros or dollars.
Russia decided to cut off natural gas to Poland and Bulgaria on Wednesday. It's now threatening to do the same to other EU countries. For this energy expert, the ultimate goal of the Kremlin is clear.
The ultimate objective is not to punish Bulgaria or Poland, which are small gas consumers. It is about changing the thinking of the most vulnerable countries to Russian gas manipulation, and these are Germany and Italy, which are the most dependent countries on Russian gas in Europe, and that would determine the overall European strategy vis-à-vis Russia.
And for this Bulgarian MEP, whose country is directly impacted by the cut, Russia is now escalating its standoff with the West to another level. And Europe's weak strategy over the past 2 decades is to blame.
We are so slow. That means this dependence of Russia needs to stop. And maybe one good thing about the decision of Russia to stop the delivery to Poland and Bulgaria is that we wake up and we say, yes, we can also without Russia, because these energy sources are used for political, geopolitical and military purposes.
Meanwhile, EU ambassadors gathered Wednesday to discuss a 6th set of sanctions against Russia, including a full oil and gas embargo, to be agreed upon next week. Maeve McMahon, Euronews, Brussels.
Nick Sitter, Professor of Public Policy at the Central European University, says in the long term, Russia may have shot itself in the foot.
Even by simply invading and then by threatening to use the gas weapon, this prompted a massive U-turn in energy policy in a lot of European countries. The days of relying on Russia as a safe source of cheap gas are simply gone. And I think we've seen this even more so with actually putting this cutoff into effect, even if it's only 2 countries. And I think we're seeing the EU rolling out a plan to wean itself of Russian gas. First of all, by making itself more robust. That means filling the storage tanks. Secondly, by looking for alternative sources of gas. That means pipeline gas from Norway and Algeria and Azerbaijan, and liquefied natural gas shipped by boat from the US and Qatar. Thirdly, by relying more on non-gas energy resources, which effectively means speeding up the green transition, although there's a bit of a role for nuclear. And finally, energy savings and energy efficiency. And this could come down to telling households to turn their thermostats down by 1 degree. So I think until recently, we talked about whether to cut Russian gas. Today, the only real question is how do we do it and how fast do we do it?
The streets of Kramatorsk are eerily empty as residents who can't or won't leave seek cover from Russian bombardment they know is coming. The signs of the shelling are obvious throughout this eastern Ukrainian city, and people are in no doubt they'll face more than damage to property. I think it will be the same as in other cities. There'll be tortures, shootings. I don't have any illusions about the occupiers. Russia remains defiant in the face of international condemnation of what it calls its special military operation. The rest of the world calls it war. And addressing lawmakers in Moscow, President Putin had a stark warning for anyone seeking to intervene. If someone from outside moves to interfere in the current developments, thus creating unacceptable strategic threats for Russia, they should know that our response to counter-assaults will be lightning fast. Ukrainian troops remain stranded in the Azovstal steel plant, the last remaining pocket of resistance in the besieged southern city of Mariupol. In our group there are more than 600 wounded colleagues with different levels of gravity. They badly need medical help. Here there are no suitable conditions, no medicine, no personnel who can help them. We also have wounded civilians. We help them as much as we can. The fate of those trapped has prompted protests in Kyiv, clearly aimed at the international community.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned the West of a lightning-fast response to strategic threats to Russia. He says that Moscow will use the tools that no one else could, quote, boast of having. After cutting Bulgaria and Poland off from its gas, Russia has warned that it could do the same to other countries if they refuse to pay for gas in rubles. Asked if Russia was ready for budget losses, President Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that the risks have already been calculated and measures taken. And on Wednesday, Finance Minister Anton Siluanov said that the Russian budget could face a 20 billion euro deficit this year, something he says will be mostly covered from Russia's National Wealth Fund. He also addressed the future of state energy giant Gazprom, saying that Russia will search for alternative markets for its energy supplies if Western countries refuse to buy Russian oil and gas. Galina Polonskaya, Euronews from Paris.
Accountability and justice for the atrocities committed in Ukraine. That is the aim of the United Nations and human rights advocates as evidence of serious breaches of humanitarian law mount. After an informal Security Council meeting, the International Criminal Court's prosecutor Karim Khan said that international law cannot be a passive spectator of the war in Ukraine.
The truth does not need to be a phantom that cannot be grasped. It's grasped by rolling up one's sleeves, by conducting old-fashioned investigative efforts, by using modern technology, harnessing technology, whether it's satellite or radar or interception, and combining it to see what seems to be true. And ultimately, the great safeguard of international justice is not down to a particular witness, it's not down to a particular prosecuting national authority, it's not down to me. There are judges above us, independent judges that will evaluate and weigh the evidence and ultimately make determinations.
The war in Ukraine has left more than 2,700 civilians dead, according to the United Nations. Its humanitarian office is coordinating with the International Committee of the Red Cross on the delicate evacuations from the besieged steel plant in the port city of Mariupol, which they hope to complete by Friday. That was one of the main goals of the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres during his visit to Russia on Wednesday. Now he is in Kyiv, where he'll be meeting with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.